You know, a while back there was some speculation that I actually just show up and shoot the talking points while we're working on these cars, and then I've got a team that comes in and does all the work behind the scenes. And I'm here to let you guys know this is actually true. That's exactly what happens. It just happens like this. I just finished shooting and editing yesterday's video. Now it's 1 a.m. and I'm gonna do all the boring work that you guys don't actually wanna see. And then we'll jump back in and I'll do the talking points. So there is a secret team that comes in at night and does the work. I had to tell the truth. It was just time for you guys to know what goes on behind the scenes. Anyway, obviously kidding. If there's anyone over here that's helping me, they're on the channel with me, because when there's two people and we can hang out and talk and work on stuff, it's a lot better. So, you know, whenever there's someone else here working on the car, it's a lot funnier and it goes in the video. I'm gonna get as far as I can on this, try to get all the boring junk done so that the rest of this video is super fun. 4 a.m., the elves have finished up their work. There's nothing left underneath this except for the exhaust manifolds, which we are missing 3 studs, and I tried to get them out of the old engine. They're not coming out, so I gotta buy 3 studs tomorrow, and I'll just buy new nuts and some copper anti-seize, and that will wrap up the exhaust. But you know what, we might actually start it without even finishing the exhaust at this point. And everything else under the engine's done. So tomorrow, hopefully, with all this work done, behind the scenes, we should start this thing. On today's episode of WatchJRGo, we're back with my cheap 2011 Escalade. And today, if everything goes right, it's gonna run again for the first time in basically a year. What is going on, guys? I am WatchJRGo, and today, like I said, I'm here with my 2011 Escalade that I worked on all night, as you saw in the intro. The intro to the intro, that is. And there were a few things left. Namely, at 4 in the morning, I dropped a nut between the starter solenoid and the starter, the main power nut from the battery. And I cannot get it back out of there. So now we've got my inspection camera and we can go on a hunt for that. Also, the new engine was missing exhaust studs like I mentioned before, so I bought a pack of those from O'Reilly's, and hopefully that's enough to get this thing all hooked back up. We were gonna start it without the exhaust in place, but since we had time to run to O'Reilly's, maybe today we could hook everything up and be good to go. Well guys, we are off on another mission to O'Reilly's. I thought I had everything to finish the Escalade last night, and I forgot that all of the spark plug wires tore off because the boots would not come off. They were cooked onto the spark plugs. So we ended up trashing all the spark plug wires for the most part. So I got to pick up a new set of wires. And while we're there, we got to get a new coil because one of my dad's company trucks had a coil failure, and they were like, oh, there's an extra one of those engines out there in that Escalade. And of course, my new engine didn't come with extra coils, so I'm missing a coil completely. So we got to pick up a new one, and then exhaust studs, and I think we're finally home free. That should get this Escalade back on the road. So one more trip to O'Reilly's, and actually here we are. Let's run inside and get some parts. Thanks, Aaron.
Hey, have a good one, buddy.
You too. All right, spark plug wires, coil, all the good stuff that we were looking for. I think we've got it all now. Let's get back over there and try to start this thing up. We got every part, I think. Let's get to work. Tell me that's not pretty. We got all new nuts on there, covered in copper anti-seize, so the next guy that has to take this apart will actually have some good luck inside there. It took hours and we destroyed the nuts getting these off of here. They all needed the torch. This time, it should come back apart easily if it ever has to come back apart again. Also, over here on the driver's side, if you can see up by that O2 sensor, we have all new studs. So, huge improvement up there, anti-seize on everything. So that's it, we are wrapped up underneath this thing. So back up top, it looks like nothing has been done at all, even though a ton of work has been done behind the scenes. We are ready to put the intake on, and we are going to use the old intake for the Escalade because it has the correct injectors for E85. This is an L94. I think they called it the most advanced of the Gen 4 LS engines. So it has all the cool toys GM could throw in it, and I don't want to swap intakes and find out we've got the wrong injectors on it. So we're going back with the old one. So I'm gonna pull the tape off here, clean up the head surfaces. Let's drop that intake on, and that's basically all that's left to start it, other than the oil cooler. We'll probably hook up everything first though.
It's time!
Is that Ric Flair?
No, it's the Buffer Brothers, and if you use that, they'll sue you.
Wait, we just can't use the other one. I think you could say it's time. You just can't say
let's get ready to rumble or something like that.
Yeah, well, we didn't say that. Clearly.
We just, you have to edit it out.
Yeah. I'll leave it in. As you guys can see, we're putting the bracket back for the power steering right now. The intake's on, torque down to its 89 inch-pounds all the way around. That takes like an hour typically. Mostly because if you're doing it carefully, you gotta run around and then run around and go 44 inch-pounds, run around again 89 inch-pounds. It takes a while. So we got that all done. Fuel line's hooked up. Everything's pretty much hooked up, but I couldn't get the wiring back in place till this bracket went on, and that is what we're doing at the moment. And as soon as the wiring drops on, we can put the alternator on and put the belt on. So moments away here, and coil time too. Although we're still missing a coil. The coil that I bought, wrong one. Who would have guessed? All right, that thing's starting to self-align right there. Looking pretty good. This thing's pretty strong by itself, so I trust where it ends up. And we'll pull out our bolts for the alternator here. I had them here for safekeeping, as you do. And we are ready for an alternator.
Do that lower one.
Yeah, that box. I mean, I was going to, just off camera.
Do it on camera.
Why?
I don't know, why not? I could just fake that. That was a Bluetooth bolt.
Bluetooth bolts, my favorite kind. All right, we can hook up now that everything is here. Water temp, all the wires can slide over where they belong. We are home free. Well, luckily O'Reilly's is open pretty late because we had to run back there and get the correct coil. The one I picked up earlier, the square coil, doesn't fit the Escalade, it's the round coil, and they're both called for, so it could be either or. And you know, like I said, we had to go get that because one was missing. And we also had to pick up some cooler clean because we're going to flush out the oil cooler in the radiator with this as well. If it's not the thing to do, it'll be fine, don't worry. I would assume the oil cooler in the radiator is about the same as the transmission cooler in the radiator. So we're gonna hook that up, blast it out both directions, hit it with some air, and make sure there's no metal left in that thing. Then, we're ready to fire. So let's get this coil in. Also, Eric just finished setting up all of our spark plug wires there with the dielectric grease, so we're ready to put those in as soon as this coil goes on. All right, here we go. Let's get the bolts out of here. And the new coil sits in here just like this. We'll get a bolt started, tighten it back down with the cordless ratchet, plug it in. There it is. All right, all the wiring is hooked back up to the engine. I'm gonna throw the spark plug wires on and we should be ready to crank it as soon as we have a radiator to keep all this oil from you know, exploding out of the cooler lines. Down to the finish line here. A couple more minutes is all it's gonna take. All right, we've got the radiator back in. It was cleaned out. We flushed all the oil out of that thing and then we blasted it out with the oil, made sure there was no liquid left over in that thing. It's time to fill the engine with oil, but first I still have to connect the two radiator hoses, which are always, you guys know the drill, going to make a mess because this thing will have been making coolant. Engines are the coolant maker. All right, and we're on. Look at that, we didn't make too much coolant. All the clips are back in for all these cooler lines. There's so many coolers on this thing. I know we talked about it. Did we talk about it before? We got a power steering cooler over here that's big, not just a loop. We've got an auxiliary transmission cooler. We've got the radiator-based transmission cooler. We've got the oil cooler for the engine, and we've got the radiator. That is how many coolers this crazy thing has to make it make like 400 horsepower and change. The Escalade should rip. It should absolutely rip. So, everything's hooked back up except for this top radiator hose. So how does it go? It looks like it goes like this. That's my best guess right there. Probably not the worst guess, huh? So we're almost there. We do not have the air intake. It's been missing ever since I bought the truck. Whoever took it apart to look at it and inspect it took those parts. So unfortunately, I am gonna have to just run it with no math until I can run and grab a factory intake tube or build one with the quick kits from O'Reilly's. So we got a couple options there, but we'll get metered air into this thing, and for now it's gonna have to start without knowing how much air is going through it. At least it has MAP. So luckily it'll run great. I think we got everything hooked up. Well, we're about to find out at least. And I'd say after we fill this up with oil, maybe I should disconnect the coils, let it turn over a couple times so we can get some oil pressure going on, and then hook the coils back up and hit fire. Let's see what happens. All we have left is this giant jug. It's actually kind of a difficult pour with the angles I'm working with here. There we go. We're still Bluetoothing. I'm just gonna let it rest there so I don't end up spilling it everywhere. But I figure we're gonna use more oil than you'd expect because we have to refill the oil cooler in the radiator. Put the oil cap back on and it's time. All right, we're gonna go ahead and connect the battery. I sure hope we got everything right on this bad boy. Can you pull the key out? Maybe put it in gear. I think I put it in neutral. Not in gear, park. Awesome. All right, power's coming. Let's see, I don't have a 10 up here, do I? I do, look at that. All right, you got battery. Go ahead and crank it over for like 10 seconds. See if oil pressure comes up. Escalade doesn't have oil pressure. Oop. Oh, airbags, yeah. Go ahead. All right, holding on. Uh-oh. Try again. Off. That's not what we wanted to see. Oh, the battery could be dead, huh? All right, let's try the jump pack. We got the jump pack now, try again. That's not good. What on earth? This is not the outcome we were expecting. I think it's the starter. We got a problem here, guys. It sounds like the starter is going in and trying to engage the flywheel and then failing, because if I turn the engine like this, you'll hear the starter right there. There's something going on with the flywheel and the starter, and it does not want to engage. All right, guys, we were just getting clicking out of the starter, so of course we pulled it back out. I tried tapping it a couple times with the hammer, nothing was happening there. And for some reason, we are not getting the starter to engage at all here. So there must be something going on with the starter, so I put the jump pack in override, and we're gonna give it a little bump here and see if the motor runs. Here we go. Are you kidding me? Did it? I think that's overcurrent protection. It's a dead short. That shouldn't be possible. Troubleshooting step 2 here, where's a 13? Here's a 13. Pop this nut loose here. We may have to buy one more thing for this Escalade, which is highly unfortunate. I was not expecting to buy even one more part. Pull this off the solenoid. Give it a little insulation with the jump pack. All right, testing again. Let's see if we can get motor. Flashing red. How? I guess I've never heard it crank. Maybe they burnt the starter up trying to crank it. I'm gonna grab a big hammer. We're gonna give it a couple hits. Let's find out. When I do this, the Bendix flies out, which is funny. Can you see it? Right here. Let's give it one hit. All right, here we go again. Maybe it's shorted internally. And luckily this has really good overload protection. Here we go. Come on. I think she's dead, Jim. As you guys saw, the solenoid was working perfectly. Maybe it has to have a nut on it before it could work. That does seem like a little bit of a problem there.
Yeah, because that's never good.
Yeah. Okay. We'll try this. See if it works.
Well, maybe because he had a nut on it, right?
Yeah, it did have the nut on it.
So now with how loose it is.
This is try number 68 here. We've got what I would call an excellent connection to power. See if the solenoid clicks now. Why is it completely dead? Last try. Ooh.
I don't think so.
I think that motor's completely locked up.
Yeah, I don't think
Even after all of our hitting on it. We finally got some bad news from it.
See if the solenoid works though.
Let's try the solenoid one more time. Okay, here's our test rig. All right.
Yep.
Solenoid works great. Testing starters without like a dedicated bench is such a nonsense process. I can't believe it. Oh well, she's probably got 1,000,000 miles on her. Well, 250,000.
Maybe mine starts.
Probably 1,000,000 starts. Honestly, this thing has probably started 1,000,000 times. And this time it decided it was not gonna start. And you know, even when I tried clicking it before we pulled the engine, I don't think I ever heard the engine try to turn. I do know I heard the starter solenoid click in, but that's it. And maybe I was just like, oh, it's locked up, which we did know it was locked up. And the engine was definitely trash. But I guess that starter went when they tried to crank on it at the rest stop where it died, so. That's it. Everything's hooked back up. All the coolers are hooked back up. Radiator's not full yet. It's waiting on that first start. But unfortunately, we didn't even get to crank it over to check for oil pressure. So we got the battery disconnected again, got the starter back out. We'll put it all back tomorrow, maybe, hopefully tomorrow, and start this thing up. What a process. Good times. I'm just glad it's all back together, and I really do hope it starts. I was super worried when it didn't crank over. I was like, oh no, what's wrong? But hopefully everything's all right, and obviously the engine turned every time we tried to start it. So we just turned it over by hand to make sure she wasn't seized up. Anyway, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop.WatchJRGo.com for cool shirts just like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. All those late night O'Reilly's runs, and we didn't think, let's buy a spare starter. Not something you usually have to think of. We did try the air horn. You know what, since we're here testing.
You gotta let them sleep.
I know it's 1 in the morning, but we should test the air horn.
Tyler is right about there, and I think we'll make him mad.
Maybe.
You can't just start bonfires in the middle of the night because he wants to.
He did it, not me. I'm not the bonfire guy. I'm not that guy.